Erich Gimpel, a German spy stationed far from home in 1942, found himself enveloped in an eerie air of disbelief. He stood inside the Kaiser shipyards in Richmond, California, once a modest facility with a handful of vessels, now transformed into a sprawling industrial powerhouse. As he surveyed the scene, his trained eyes struggled to reconcile what lay before him. An unending line of ship hulls, a sight akin to cars stacked neatly in a dealership lot, all waiting for their turn to set sail. Gimpel felt the weight of his mission bear down upon him as he meticulously counted the massive structures. 1, 2, 3, he lost track. It was staggering, a completed cargo ship launching every few days. In stark contrast to the limited output he had anticipated, America was in full throttle, steeling itself for the war effort with an industrial tempo that seemed straight out of a science fiction novel. With urgency coursing through his veins, Gimpel hurriedly composed his report, detailing his observations for his superiors back in Berlin. "The Americans are building a ship every 4 days," he claimed, a statement that felt surreal even as he penned it. He imagined the reactions on the other side of the Atlantic. How could they possibly fathom this? But when the report reached Berlin, it was met with skepticism. Dismissed as potential propaganda or an exaggeration fueled by anxiety, the truth of Gimpel's observations evaporated into doubt. Little did they know, this remarkable feat of industrial might positioned the United States on the brink of becoming an unprecedented powerhouse. Gimpel was witnessing history in the making, but his superior's disbelief would become a missed opportunity, a moment when perception failed to keep pace with reality. As we dive deeper into the narrative of World War II, we reach a significant symbol of the era, the Liberty ship. Often described as the ugly miracle, these vessels disrupted the notion of shipbuilding as we knew it. Before their advent, crafting a ship was akin to sculpting a masterpiece. Every curve and detail mattered, and the process demanded both time and craftsmanship. Picture artisans with chisels and blueprints working tirelessly for months, if not years, to create a vessel that was both functional and beautiful. But with the war looming, this painstaking artistry had to evolve into something more pragmatic. Enter the Liberty ship, a remarkable innovation born out of necessity. These vessels, while undeniably boxy and lacking any semblance of grace, were a stroke of genius. Designed to be built quickly and cost-effectively, they could be assembled in just a matter of weeks. This was the era of speed and volume over elegance, a shift that reflected the urgent demands of wartime logistics. With each Liberty ship capable of carrying over 9,000 tons of vital cargo, whether it was weapons, fuel, food supplies, or soldiers, the numbers highlighted their significance in the struggle across the Atlantic. Transporting these essentials was not just a logistical challenge, it was a lifeline for the troops fighting on the front lines. Without these ships, the Allies would have faced insurmountable barriers in their quest to gain ground in Europe. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill famously remarked on their appearance, calling them a dreadful-looking thing. Yet amid this unflattering description, he recognized their immense value to the war effort. It's a testament to how unconventional solutions can emerge from desperate times. The sheer volume of these vessels, over 2,700 Liberty ships were constructed, showcases an incredible feat of American industrial might. Factories that once specialized in highly detailed craft were now humming with workers, wielding rivet guns and assembly lines, creating these ugly but effective ships at an unprecedented pace. This shift from traditional maritime artistry to mass production symbolized a broader transformation in warfare itself. The battle was no longer just fought on land and in the skies. It had shifted to the heart of industry. Factories became battlefields of their own, where resilience and innovation played crucial roles. The Liberty ship stands as a symbol of this new kind of warfare, a relentless pursuit of efficiency in the face of urgency. As we consider the legacy of the Liberty ship, It's easy to overlook its design flaws or lack of aesthetic appeal, but take a moment to reflect on what these ships represented. They were vessels of hope, transporting not just goods, but the promise of victory. They embodied a spirit of resilience and ingenuity that resonates with us even today, reminding us that throughout history, necessity can indeed be the mother of invention. So next time you hear someone mention the Liberty ship, remember that its story is not just about the vessels themselves, it's about the grit and determination of those who built them and the hope they carried across the stormy seas to allies waiting on the other side. In a world where beauty often overshadows utility, the Liberty ship serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes even the most uninspiring creations can be a crucial key to success in the most challenging of times. In a world shaken by conflict, when the cries for heroes echoed across the battlefield, one man emerged with a vision that would change the course of the war and redefine an entire industry. Enter Henry Kaiser, a name you might not immediately associate with naval warfare. A construction magnate, Kaiser wasn't known for ships, but for massive infrastructure projects, dams, highways, and a relentless drive for innovation. His knack for construction was deeply rooted in practicality, but as the Second World War raged on, Kaiser found himself at a unique crossroads. As the demand for naval vessels skyrocketed, Kaiser saw an opportunity. The existing shipbuilding methods were slow, cumbersome, and frankly, outdated. Kaiser asked a question that many felt was absurd. What if we could build ships like we build cars? That mindset was the spark that ignited a revolutionary approach to shipbuilding. While others focused on traditional, labor-intensive methods, Kaiser envisioned a game plan that encapsulated efficiency, speed, and the audacity to defy the norms. His revolutionary idea? To break shipbuilding into sections, constructing smaller, prefabricated components, hulls, decks, and engines in parallel across different facilities. Imagine a factory where segments of a ship were produced simultaneously, much like how car factories operated. By the time it all came together, each portion had already been crafted with utmost precision. It was a concept so ahead of its time that it seemed to transcend logic. But Kaiser didn't stop there. He knew that traditional ship construction relied on rivets and nitpicky alignment, processes steeped in the craftsmanship of age-old methods. He boldly proposed using welding technology instead. The art of welding, which had been overshadowed by rivets for decades, became a cornerstone of Kaiser's shipbuilding strategy. This shift dramatically cut construction time and costs. The once daunting task of producing ships transformed into an efficient assembly line, where each segment fits seamlessly into place like pieces of a well-crafted puzzle. By the height of production in 1943, Kaiser's shipyards employed over 90,000 workers. This workforce comprised not just men, but many women who had stepped up during the war. They were welders, fitters, and laborers, equipped with the same spirit of determination that drove their male counterparts. The sight of women in hard hats and coveralls defied societal norms, making a powerful statement and inspiring a generation. They weren't just building ships, they were also breaking barriers and reshaping the workforce. One particular achievement showcased the extraordinary capacity of Kaiser's shipyards, the SS Robert E. Peary. In just 4 days and 15 hours, this cargo ship was launched from the docks, shattering previous records and igniting awe across the nation. It wasn't merely a ship, it was a symbol of innovation at warp speed, proof that human ingenuity could conquer even the most insurmountable of challenges. Now, let's put this in perspective. Imagine living within a world where every second counts, where a ship is not just a vessel, but a lifeline. Kaiser's vision wasn't just about numbers or efficiency, it was about saving lives and hastening victory. Each ship launched represented hope, carrying equipment and troops overseas to fight for a brighter future. Kaiser's influence didn't merely end with the war. His techniques and philosophies trickled down into numerous industries, shaping modern manufacturing. His legacy is a beautiful tapestry woven with bold moves, empowerment, and disruption of the status quo. In a world where the impossible appeared to be just that, Henry Kaiser built a bridge, one that ushered in a new era of rapid production and fortified America's industrial heart. By reflecting on Henry J. Kaiser, we recognize an icon whose audacious spirit resonates today, reminding us of the incredible feats that can unfold when one refuses to accept limits and constantly seeks innovation, even in the face of adversity. The scene opens with a frenzied atmosphere in November 1942, where the backdrop of a bustling shipyard echoes the frantic energy that filled the air. Imagine the steel beams, the clang of hammers, and the exhilaration of workers pushing the boundaries of engineering as they united toward a common goal. Now let's focus on a particular moment: the launch of the SS Robert E. Peary, a ship that would become famous not just for its design, but for the audacity of its builders. As the clock ticked down, you could feel the tension and anticipation building within those yards. Workers, hand in hand, transformed raw materials into something monumental, a vessel that stood as a testament to human innovation and spirit in the face of tyranny. It was an awe-inspiring display of teamwork and determination. In just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes after the keel was laid, the ship slid into the water. Cameras captured every second of this momentous event, and cheers erupted among the crowd, an exclamation mark in the narrative of a world at war. However, not everyone shared in this celebration. As news of the remarkable feat reached Berlin, it was met with skepticism. The Luftwaffe and Germany's intelligence operatives struggled to fathom what had just transpired across the Atlantic. Whispers of disbelief floated through the corridors of power, leading to the incredulous dismissal of the event as a product of Allied propaganda. Hitler, fixated on his own constructs of reality, was adamant that this was a ruse, a mere trick to boost morale. But how could they so easily discard the evidence, the photos, the testimonials of those who stood witness? This moment brings us face to face with a striking irony. While Nazis refused to accept the swift realities unfolding across the ocean, American shipyards were transforming warfare into a seamless assembly line. Each ship built wasn't just metal and machinery, it symbolized resilience, unity, and innovation under pressure. The growing fleet was more than a military asset. It served as a beacon of hope for a beleaguered world. Visualize the contrasts here. Over in the Third Reich, everything was meticulously calculated, tense, burdened with ideology, while across the Atlantic in America, factories were humming with energy and belief. Each ship, completed within days, was much more than a victory over logistics. It was a message. It was a statement. It was proof that freedom and cooperation could triumph against oppression. And as Nazi spies scuttled about, attempting to uncover the truth, they were caught in a web of denial crafted by their own leaders. These agents knew better, understood the efficiency, the incredible pace at which American ingenuity was operating, yet they were compelled to parrot an official line that painted an alternate reality. Fearful of admitting weakness, the High Command chose to embrace ignorance. Meanwhile, America, buoyed by this unforeseen success, prepared for the ship's maiden voyage. The SS Robert E. Peary wasn't merely heading out to sea, she was riding on waves of hope, determination, and a newfound confidence that would soon ripple across the globe. Her launch was more than an engineering achievement. It was a bold declaration that the tide was changing. As we trace the narrative of this ship, it's hard not to reflect on the fortitude of the individuals involved in her creation. Those workers labored tirelessly, contributing their sweat and skill not merely for a paycheck, but for a larger cause, ensuring that their fellow citizens, heroes abroad, and future generations would hold on to hope and course toward a better world. So let's ponder this. In a time when every report out of enemy internment camps was a somber reminder of human cruelty, they were simultaneously crafting a vessel embodying the human spirit's resilience. The SS Robert E. Peary's launch, a moment of jubilation cloaked in humanity, rang out like a bell of change, echoing over the horizon, and the world was shifting, whether Berlin wanted to believe it or not. As we tied ourselves into the next chapter, consider this. The Robert E. Peary was merely one ship, but a monumental symbol, her story intertwining with the fate of nations, feeding the relentless march of optimism in a world struggling to break free from the dark shadows of despair. This bold endeavor in fast-paced shipbuilding hinted at a new era, a relentless pursuit of freedom that would soon manifest fully across the war-torn globe. In the heart of the Kaiser yards, a tapestry of humanity interwove within the clang of metal and the roar of machinery. This expansive industrial landscape wasn't merely a facility, it was a crucible where ordinary men and women transformed into extraordinary pioneers, united by an urgent mission to outbuild Hitler. Tens of thousands arrived with little to no experience, yet through sheer determination and grit, they quickly learned to wield the tools of industry. Imagine the scene. Black workers, many journeying from the south, stood side by side with white workers, hailing from Midwestern towns, their backgrounds as diverse as the materials being forged. Here, in this melting pot of ambition, women who had never before operated heavy machinery picked up hammers and welding torches like seasoned craftsmen. Their backgrounds varied, but together they formed a formidable workforce, driven by a shared goal that echoed within the walls of the Kaiser yards, the fight for freedom. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the yards transformed under the glow of floodlights. The relentless sounds of welding and riveting became the heartbeat of this community. To keep spirits high and fatigue at bay, loudspeakers blasted music, filling the air with melodies of hope and resilience. These were not just workers, they were artists sculpting a future, each piece of metal shaped echoing their resolve. Within this factory, the pulse of life continued around the clock. Cafeterias ran 24 hours, bustling with laughter and camaraderie, the aroma of warm meals wrapping around workers like a comforting embrace. Each bite nourished not just their bodies, but their spirits as well. It was here, amidst hearty lunch breaks and quick dinners, that friendships formed over shared stories and dreams of returning home victorious. For many mothers, the Kaiser yards provided more than just a job. They provided support. Childcare centers sprang up nearby, allowing women to balance their new roles. While they welded by night, their children were cared for in safe spaces, giving them peace of mind. Every worker felt they played a part in something monumental, and that bond intensified with each passing shift. As the days blurred into nights, every corner of the Kaiser yards buzzed with purpose. The spirit of teamwork permeated the air, an unspoken camaraderie that wound around them like steel, binding them to this historic mission. Conversations were filled with aspirations and determination as they encouraged each other through the long hours. Every rivet tightened not just metal, but their shared dream of triumph over tyranny. Each of these workers forged their identity along with the steel, knowing that whatever challenges they faced in the yards paled in comparison to the brutalities of war occurring far across the ocean. They carried that weight on their shoulders. Memories of loved ones and hope for a world restored fueled their spirit. This was not merely a job, it was a calling, a fight, and a promise to future generations. Amidst the sparks and sweat, they created a legacy, etching their names into the annals of history. The Kaiser yards became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of people who believed in a brighter future. They might have arrived as strangers, but they forged connections that transformed them into a family. Together, they shaped not just tanks and planes, but hope. No longer mere workers, they became part of a grand narrative, one that would echo through history as the embodiment of human spirit and tenacity. Their hands crafted the steel that would defend freedoms, and, in doing so, they declared their own. The Kaiser yards were a battlefield of a different kind, a place where camaraderie turned into courage, where each individual's contribution was a pivotal piece of the greater whole. History remembers them as more than just faceless workers. They were the heartbeat of a nation, the backbone of democracy, and proof that unity knows no bounds. Together, they built not just machinery, but a collective memory that would stand the test of time. The Nazi intelligence community was gripped by a wave of disbelief as they faced an alarming reality. Allied convoys were swiftly growing larger, while their beloved U-boats were sinking faster than the Germans could ever hope to replace them. Fueled by desperation, analysts in Berlin scrambled to make sense of the seemingly insurmountable odds stacked against them. Reports trickled in from a myriad of sources: spies infiltrating American shipyards, captured documents revealing the staggering production values, and aerial reconnaissance photographs. The figures were astonishing. By 1945, America had built over 2,700 Liberty ships, a feat of wartime manufacturing that averaged nearly one vessel rolling out of the yards every single day at the height of the program. Just take a moment to appreciate that scale. It's not just about numbers, it's about what they represent: a relentless industrial juggernaut that was reshaping the war at sea. For many, the response in Berlin would appear almost comical if the stakes weren't so deadly serious. Analysts, ever skeptical and rigorously accustomed to underestimating their opponents, refused to take the numbers at face value. They dismissed the Allied reports, convinced that these figures were exaggerated by a factor of 10. Sinking deeper into their own denial, they thought that this was nothing more than an elaborate ruse, a grand misdirection concocted by their enemies to sow confusion and despair. But, tragically for the Nazi regime, this skepticism was outright folly. The truth was far worse than they could have ever imagined. The US merchant fleet had swollen to an unprecedented size, transforming it into an insatiable entity that absorbed losses like a sponge. The Germans, in their underestimation, failed to grasp the sheer scale of the Allied logistical machine. Hundreds of merchant vessels lost to enemy fire or U-boat attacks barely made a dent in the grand scheme. As German naval commanders began to confront the reality of their ongoing struggle, a chilling realization set in. They were, in essence, fighting a hydra. This metaphor refers to the many-headed serpent of Greek mythology, which, when one head was severed, two more would sprout in its place. For every ship sunk, another would appear. This relentless production cycle meant the Allies could shrug off significant losses, a concept alien to the German leadership, who had long prided themselves on their naval superiority. Imagine being at the center of that turmoil. German commanders with maps strewn across their desks, scratching their heads in every strategy meeting, realizing time and again that their tactics were inadequate against a foe capable of generating vessels at a seemingly endless rate. Picture the frustration, the panic creeping into their conversations, knowing every U-boat sunk translated only to more and more Liberty ships on the horizon. Meanwhile, the Allies, buoyed by a newfound confidence, understood the tide was shifting. American workers, shipbuilders, and dock laborers were producing at a fever pitch, driven by a sense of purpose that reverberated throughout the nation. Each Liberty ship was a testament to their determination, presenting not just a boat, but a lifeline of supplies and troops destined for the front lines. This scenario created a profound psychological edge for the Allies, one that was tangible for those fighting on the front lines. As the US continued to supply Allied forces in staggering amounts, the anxiety building among the U-boat crews would only grow, leading to reckless engagements and increasingly desperate tactics. This was a turning point in the war, an invisible thread pulling the fabric of the Nazi naval operations tighter until it began to unravel. The outcome of this battle at sea, influenced by numbers that simply didn't add up, would change the course of World War II, reinforcing the idea that sometimes belief can become a fatal blind spot. As the Nazis grappled with their inability to comprehend the scale and resolve of American shipbuilding, they unwittingly sealed their own fate, unable to adapt to the evolving war that they so confidently believed they could control. As the narrative of the U-boat war unfolded, it began with a sense of dominance that to the Allies felt overwhelmingly daunting. The German submarines, U-boats, were the scourge of the Atlantic. They lurked beneath the surface, waiting for unsuspecting merchant ships to pass overhead. Convoys faced ambush after ambush, and reports poured in of ships sinking by the dozens, with sailors thrown into a chaotic struggle against the merciless sea. It was a time when every sack of flour, every drop of fuel, and every piece of munitions crossing the ocean was at risk of being claimed by the depths. Imagine being a sailor on one of those merchant ships, your crew relying on nothing but hope and the promise of a safe passage. The tension would be palpable as you hear the distant rumble of the engines, each vibration a reminder of the very real threat lurking beneath. One minute, you're engaged in the mundane tasks of sea life, the rolling waves and the brisk air. But at any moment, your world could become a whirlpool of chaos. The fear was not without merit. Many never saw those moments when their ship would meet the fate of the icy Atlantic, their lives snuffed out as quickly as the snap of a finger. Yet as the war dragged into the early 1940s, the landscape began to shift. Enter the Liberty ship, a marvel of American ingenuity. Production ramped up at an astonishing rate, as shipyards became hives of activity where entire vessels seemed to emerge overnight. Picture the proud sight of those sturdy ships being launched into the water, the flags waving, the chants echoing, a testament to resilience and determination amid despair. From a mere trickle, the numbers leaped skyward. By 1943, the Allies launched over 140 Liberty ships each month. Such was the will of the American people, and it reflected a national ethos that couldn't be broken even in the face of adversity. On the German side, however, the production of U-boats stagnated. The once fearsome fleet of submarines began to dwindle, a stark contrast that left German admirals flustered. They could no longer deny the harsh reality that the open ocean was swiftly turning into an American conveyor belt of victory, churning out ships faster than their own forces could sink them. The weight of their losses began to resonate through the high commands and echoed in the hearts of the crews who once held dominion under the waves. Imagine being one of those admiral's officers, standing in a cold war room, the maps before you marking lost vessels and dwindling resources. The tension must have been suffocating as they confronted the truth. The Battle of the Atlantic was not a contest of courage anymore, but a race against time and numbers. The Allies had adapted and evolved. They now wielded radar to detect U-boats lurking below. Long-range aircraft soared above, armed with bombs and depth charges, ready to strike as soon as a sonar ping was detected. Life beneath the waves had become increasingly perilous for the German crews. The depths that once provided protection now held a new kind of threat. The recognition that they faced an unwinnable war was likely a bitter pill for German leadership. Just imagine the conflicting emotions, confusion mixed with despair, a sinking realization that they were outmatched not by skill or bravery, but by sheer industrial might. The respect for their adversaries must have grown as they saw the American shipyards operate like well-oiled machines, producing not just ships but hope, re-establishing the lifelines between continents. Through this grim chapter of naval warfare, the stories of individual sailors and their harrowing experiences deserve to shine. Each Liberty ship that set sail carried with it not just cargo, but the hopes of families waiting on shore. And as those ships braved the treacherous Atlantic, past the shadows of U-boats, that resilience galvanized a nation. As the ocean transformed into an arena of power and determination, the Allies stepped firmly into the light of victory, flipping the narrative of the U-boat war from dominant predator to desperate hunter, struggling to stay afloat in a sea of determination. As we dive deeper into the narrative of America during World War II, it's crucial to understand the remarkable scale of production that took place behind the scenes. The Liberty ships were just the tip of an enormous iceberg. While Germany was hamstrung by reliance on slave labor and diminished resources, the United States mobilized its immense manufacturing prowess into a full-scale war machine. From 1941 to 1945, America became a formidable industrial titan. The numbers speak volumes: over 297,000 aircraft, 88,000 tanks, and an astonishing 2.4 million trucks rolled off factory floors. Let that sink in for a moment. Picture the assembly lines stretching out like a cityscape of steel and rivets, where silhouettes of airplanes take shape in a symphony of efficiency and labor. At the Ford bomber plant at Willow Run, a staggering production rate emerged, with one aircraft emerging from the assembly line every 63 minutes. That's the resounding impact of American ingenuity in action. Cities like Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Seattle transformed into industrial fortresses, rallying communities around a singular purpose. These urban centers became synonymous with wartime production, where factory whistleblowers became the soundtrack of patriotism and blue-collar workers donned overalls as their camouflage in this battle of industrial might. The spirit of collaboration was palpable. Workers became part of something greater than themselves, fueled by the belief that their labor would ensure freedom across the globe. But it wasn't just the industrial workers driving this revolution. Even farmers, traditionally seen as the backbone of American agriculture, collectively rose to the occasion. Across the heartland, communities organized drives to collect scrap metal, which was repurposed into weapons and vehicles, turning barnyards into collections of vital materials. The mantra, "Every little bit helps," echoed in every corner of the nation, reinforcing the idea that everyone had a role to play, no matter how small. By the time 1944 rolled around, a remarkable truth emerged. The United States was producing more war material than all the Axis powers combined. This tremendous achievement wasn't merely a result of having vast resources or a large labor force. No, it was about organization and discipline. Factories were converted around the clock, resources were allocated efficiently, and the spirit of democracy drove this industrial effort. In a world where the Axis powers relied on dictatorships, America showcased a different narrative, one where civilian passion and democratic values could outbuild oppression. The factories may have been churning out planes and tanks, but the true miracle lay in the hearts of everyday Americans, all dedicated to a cause larger than themselves, securing the hope of liberty for generations to come. As we reflect on this extraordinary chapter in history, it becomes clear it wasn't mere luck or happenstance that fueled America's industrial machinery. It was the unyielding resolve of a nation united in purpose. These were times that demanded sacrifice and hard work, but they also nurtured a sense of belonging and pride that resonated through every assembly line, bomb factory, and shipment of materials. Each piece manufactured represented not just metal and machinery, but a commitment to freedom and the belief that determination can overcome even the most oppressive systems. As the dust settled after the war, the story of the Liberty ships was far from over. Thousands of these versatile vessels embarked on new journeys, morphing into floating lifelines. They transported food and aid to ravaged nations, offering hope where despair had taken root. Imagine a ship, once a carrier of war supplies, now a beacon of assistance, helping countless refugees find a new home or providing medical care in makeshift hospitals. These ships, full of history, became classrooms for the next generation, embodying resilience and rebirth. Yet their legacy extends beyond their physical forms. The very essence of how they were built transformed the industrial landscape. The techniques born from their rapid production, modular assembly, mass welding, and rapid prototyping formed the bedrock of modern shipbuilding and aviation. These approaches ensured not just efficiency, but a new understanding that speed and scale could shift the tide in any conflict, parallel to the impact of weaponry. The Liberty ships were not merely vessels, they redefined what was possible, altering the rules of war and design forever. Their impact lingers, reminding us that innovation can shape destinies long after the battles have ceased. Years after the war, the truth emerged. Declassified intelligence confirmed what many had dismissed as just another tale of defeat. Nazi spies had reported accurately. Americans were indeed building a ship every few days, a staggering feat of industrial prowess. What the spies observed wasn't mere propaganda. It was the dawn of a new era, where democracy, united by a common goal, overshadowed an empire fueled by fear. Henry Kaiser's shipyards became a symbol of this transformation. It wasn't just bombs and bullets that conquered Hitler, it was the relentless spirit of American labor, the sound of welders crafting steel, cranes lifting hope, and an unwavering faith in what a nation could achieve together. The spies' warnings went unheeded at the time, but history would not forget their message: a ship every 4 days. That starkly was the truth, and it signaled not only an end to tyranny, but a celebration of perseverance and unity.